We will now make way for our next talk. Sophia and Josh. I'm super excited about this one also. Sophia, are you coming on with Josh?
I don't think so. Oh,
okay,
yes.
I love it.
I saw that. Yes, I was like, I know.
We usually have to beg Sophia to get in front of the camera. We want Sophia here hosting this with us, and that's just has not ever, we've never been able to talk her into it. So I'm super excited about this. Oh, good. There we can see you, Josh. Can we just get a quick sound check from both of you? Nope, didn't hear you, Sophia.
Sophia, you're just
Got
on
you,
mute.
Josh.
So
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Perfect. Yay. This is a historic moment. I'm going to take a bunch of screenshots.
All right. And then we'll bring Sophia your screen up. All right. There we go. And with that, over to you.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Sophia. I'm the COO here at Civo and have been a part of just about every Cube Crash. There's been a few that I've missed, but it's been such a fun event just getting to work alongside people like Danielle, Lisa, Catherine, and all the countless other people that help make this event possible. In my day-to-day job, I spend most of my time working across operations, security, and our global events, with a really big focus on AI and digital sovereignty, which is super relevant. I think that panel was very interesting, and we're going to touch on a lot of those topics in more detail during our talk. So I'm joined today by Josh Mazout, who's the co-founder of Relax AI and the Chief Innovation Officer here at Civo, where he focuses on exploring emerging technologies and driving innovation across the platform, particularly in AI and machine learning and cloud-native infrastructure. Before joining Civo, he led enterprise machine learning platform initiatives at AstraZeneca, supporting hundreds of ML projects across research and business teams. So he's really seen firsthand what it takes to scale AI in real-world environments. So today we're going to talk about digital sovereignty, platform engineering, and AI, everything that we've been talking about today. It's going to be a practical look at what's really happening in today's market. So to kick things off, I wanted to start with a statistic. 92% of global industry leaders say that geopolitical shifts are increasing data sovereignty risks. 92% across 9 countries. Virtually every industry leader surveyed said that geopolitical shifts are increasing their sovereignty risk. This is a global concern, just as they just talked about. I know Matt really touched on a lot of the different regions, which we'll dive into a little bit more. But that sovereign cloud market is already $117 billion, growing at 24% year on year. There's over 34 countries now having data localization requirements. And 71% of organizations say that cross-border compliance is their biggest regulatory headache. So this is not theoretical. This is the operating environment. So what is digital sovereignty? Digital sovereignty is the ability of organizations to exercise control over their data, infrastructure, and digital systems, independent of foreign jurisdictions or external legal reach. I was recently listening to a really interesting panel around the UK Sovereign AI Unit, and they define sovereignty as whether or not someone else can switch it off or use power over the nation to prevent it from doing something it legitimately wants to do. They highlighted that this involves maintaining control over data centers, ensuring transparency regarding what is inside the AI models used by society, and having the ability to support national champions that are accountable to their country's legal system, rather than being subject to foreign influence. So there's 3 main things I want to touch on here. The big one is that it's so much more than just geography. It's more than being able to pick EU West 1 in a drop-down. That's not really sovereignty. Sovereignty is about the legal jurisdiction. It's the access control and what happens when the law in one country conflicts with the law in another. So second point is that it's personal and enterprise. I don't want you reading my emails. That's digital sovereignty extended to the individual level. Companies are thinking about this in the exact same way. And then the final point is that you can retrofit sovereignty. Plenty of organizations are starting to do that now, but it makes things significantly harder than building it in from the start. It really has to flow through your architecture, your procurement, and your governance decisions. So why does this matter for platform engineers? Everyone I've spoken to over the past few months has an AI strategy. I know we've touched on it in quite a few talks over the last few hours. Data and AI are now at the center of every platform decision, every prompt, every fine-tune, every RAG pipeline. It all runs through infrastructure that you are building, which means if you're the one building the platform, you own that data risk. We're also crossing a pretty big shift. We're no longer just building tools for humans. We're enabling autonomous agents to act like employees. They can access files, send emails, and execute code, often without a human in the loop. And the important part is this: the guardrails you build into your platform today become the rules those agents operate under tomorrow. And AI is an amplifier. It makes great engineers more productive, but it also amplifies those mistakes. When something goes wrong, it doesn't just go wrong slowly. It goes wrong at machine speed and at scale. The blast radius is so much bigger than anything we've dealt with before. So this isn't theoretical. There's just a few stats here that I wanted to touch on, but 65% of enterprise AI tools are already running without IT oversight. Data being uploaded to AI tools is exploding, and we're seeing billions in regulatory fines with even stricter frameworks coming. So again, this isn't hypothetical. Let me show you what's really happening now around the world. I know we touched on some of these in the last talk, but we'll dive a little bit deeper here. Again, this isn't a regional issue. This truly is global. Every major economy is now rethinking one core question: who actually controls their data? So we'll go ahead and start with Europe, because I know that came up earlier with the EU AI Act. That's going to be implemented in the next few months. We're already seeing governments push back on where data lives and who can access it. Even large providers are having to acknowledge that under certain laws, data access isn't always as local as it seems. So Europe is setting the tone here. In North America, it's a bit of a different picture. Again, I know, Matt, you mentioned a few different states that we're starting to enforce some regulations. We've got, I think, 19 total states here in the US that are starting to do that. Innovation is moving incredibly fast, but sovereignty challenges are real. The Cloud Act allows for extraterritorial data access, which creates tension between speed of innovation and the control of data. So it's not about being right or wrong, it's about the trade-offs. Asia Pacific is where this is scaling the fastest. In India, China, South Korea, they're all tightening data localization and control requirements. This is now a core part of how they think about infrastructure, not just an afterthought. And then the Middle East and Africa, often overlooked, but moving very quickly. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kenya, South Africa, they're actively building national frameworks around data control and sovereignty. This isn't emerging, it's already happening. So across all of these regions, the pattern has become very clear. There's different approaches, but the same underlying question: who really controls your digital infrastructure? So what happens when sovereignty isn't built in? Let's touch on some of the security realities that we're seeing today. So let's start with prompt injection. This isn't theoretical anymore. It's hitting real products. Security researchers have already shown that tools can be manipulated with hidden instructions, even embedded in something as simple as a URL, to extract sensitive data. There's also research showing a single malicious email can trigger zero-click data exfiltration from AI assistants. But the core issue, these systems literally cannot tell the difference between data and instructions. So your AI assistant can be socially engineered. Now, a layer on top of that, shadow AI. We've seen this movie before with shadow AI, but this is worse because AI doesn't just store data, it processes and learns from it. In a recent report, nearly half of the employees still use personal AI accounts even after bans. And organizations using AI heavily are seeing breach costs increase significantly. There's even data showing employees are regularly pasting sensitive company information like code, financials, or strategy straight into chatbots. So banning AI doesn't solve the problem. It's just going to push it underground. And then we get into the credentials. We're now seeing that hundreds of thousands of AI credentials show up in InfoStealer logs. Think about what that actually means. That's not just access. That's entire conversation histories, product strategy, internal architecture, customer data, and legal discussions, all sitting in one place. That's one login and a full replay of how your business thinks. It's kind of scary. This is a completely new attack surface. And while all of this is happening, regulation is starting to catch up. The EU AI Act starts enforcement in 2026. And when you combine that with GDPR, penalties can reach double-digit percentages of global revenue. And here's the reality. The rules aren't fully settled yet. The technology isn't fully understood yet. And the security models definitely aren't solved yet. The final answer isn't final. And that's exactly why rooms like this matter. Communities like KubeCrash are where this is getting figured out in real time. So the question then becomes, if AI is this powerful and this risky, how do we actually build it safely? How do we keep control of data, infrastructure, and outcomes? That's what sovereign infrastructure is really about. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Josh, who's going to walk through what that looks like in practice.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Fantastic. And I think what a fantastic roundup of current industry trends and current open questions that everyone's asking in the platform engineering space. And what I'd hopefully like to do today is actually show you in a very cloud native and open source way how companies and enterprises and even individuals at home can start to put solutions towards these problems. And I'll start very much so from a CIVO point of view about sovereign infrastructure, but everything I'm showing today is applicable to multiple clouds, and all the demos I'm doing are actually open source, can be deployed on any platform. Firstly, to start, actually, sovereign infrastructure has become a really obscure term. And actually, I think Sophia had a really good definition there, actually, on being able to own your solution from the cloud layer up on your terms. And one of the things at CIVO that we do to ensure that that can happen for businesses, enterprises, or even individual developers is actually being able to meet developers where they are. So instead of having a single platform in the cloud that operates under a single API and a single private cloud product and a single platform product, we have parity between public and private cloud. And on a public cloud, you will find ready to go sovereign infrastructure that's already fully compliant in UK, US, Germany, or India. That includes an industry-leading managed Kubernetes product that is able to spin up in as quick as 90 seconds, and pre-built-in support and ready-to-go templates for technologies such as NVIDIA Blackwell. When you need to scale past those points and you need to rely on security perimeters, you can rely on security by default with services that we have, such as managed load balancers and managed databases. And when you move towards a private cloud area, looking at the box in the middle, you can actually achieve the same outcomes, the same security perimeter, using the same parity of conclusion. And actually, one of the things that Kelsey Hightower on our board is really passionate about is actually with products like FlexCore, you don't have to wait for someone to put a region on their roadmap. You can deploy it for yourself. And actually, that opens up a whole world, and not just in the CIVO perspective, but a whole world of flexibility. When you have a conversation with a law firm about using agents to accelerate legal processes, and they say, I don't want to boot that up on the cloud, is it a conversation changer for you to say, actually, I can run all of that infrastructure inside your office, and you can have all your data stored in a single location? And actually, with the sovereignty conversation, being able to have flexibility on where you can deploy and where you can run becomes one of the most powerful tools that you can have as a platform. And then in the third column, if you're truly a platform engineer looking at platform engineering solutions, then you can look no further than Construct, which allows you to then take that pre-provisioned infrastructure and actually go to a full production-ready IDP in minutes with a turnkey solution that effectively allows you to take public cloud, private cloud, and bare metal to any multi-cloud and be able to bring workloads together. And these tools in combination are what we think give people the autonomy and ownership to be able to declare where they'd like to deploy and take ownership on their own terms, as Sophia mentioned. Next slide, please. There you go. And I think just to add to that, if you're looking at kind of managed AI solutions, one of the things that we find particularly interesting right now is the complexity around deploying managed AI. And there are lots of different places where I think engineers get confused and stuck behind deploying AI, but being able to have a really clear, definitive barrier around your AI is sovereign, privacy-centric, and then able to complete these complex regulatory or compliance use cases. I think we saw some really interesting discussion in the last panel, actually, about how you can put some of these concepts together. But one of the things that we're really, really proud of being able to do with products like Relax AI is actually give you turnkey product sovereignty and turnkey privacy. And it can be installed and implemented as quickly as just changing 2 environment variables in your existing products to gain full sovereignty within the UK, but then also be able to gain cost reductions of up to 80% whilst keeping model accuracy within 5 to 10% accuracy. And again, using these open source models, we think in combination with these different types of deployment, actually give engineers, developers, and just business problem solvers new tools to be able to build sovereign solutions that historically we weren't able to do so. Actually, if you start to really dig into this, you see this as a trend that not only was discussed in previous talks, but actually the majority of concern right now around enterprise decision makers is, do you own the inputs and outputs of what's happening with your AI platform? And particularly with the Relax product, you're able to do that through zero retention, sovereignty and compliance by default, but then also turnkey migrations across from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. So if you're currently running an AI workload and you want to move it over to Relax AI, it will give you an 80% cost reduction without losing any accuracy, and you'll be able to gain all the privacy and security benefits. But to bring this to life, what we've done is actually we've put some demos together on the next slide. What we've done is show you some of these concepts that become quite scary enterprise analyst papers and solutions that we have that are all open source, can be deployed onto any platform, and effectively can be used today. You're very free to take these home with you and show them to your CFO, your CSIO, etc. alongside that. And one of those tools, just one moment, let me re-screen share. Apologies. There we go. And one of these tools that I think has really shook the industry recently has been OpenClaw. And OpenClaw has become unanimously both the fastest growing GitHub project, but then also the fastest growing concern for chief information security officers in the industry. And whilst this exploded in popularity and people saw huge benefits and huge value to things like OpenClaw, I think the last panel actually highlighted some really interesting challenges and some really interesting complexities to using this in an enterprise setting. You've seen people like Jensen Huang say every enterprise needs to have an OpenClaw strategy, but actually some of these tools to make this work in an enterprise setting aren't quite here yet. And what me and Sophia have done working with clients over the past few years in really complex sovereign-based enterprise scenarios is partner with lots of these providers of secure AI tools. And one of the ones that we think is particularly effective is actually DefenseClaw. And DefenseClaw is built by Cisco, and it's a wrapper that sits around the OpenClaw product. This is open source. It works on any model provider and any cloud. But what we're going to do today is actually show you the perimeter we've put around OpenClaw, and then some of the things that Sophia was quite concerned about in her previous slides, like data exfiltration, things like AIs being able to break into your data, having a full audit log. We're actually just going to step through and show you solutions that are in place now to be able to do so. So this is live today on GitHub. You're very free to take this away. You're very free to deploy it on any infrastructure, show it to your boss, show it to your engineering manager. But what we'll effectively do now is actually just very quickly execute this demo, where you'll see that you've loaded DefenseClaw, which is running on a CVO instance. That CVO instance is providing the perimeter that keeps it secure so that it can't break out of its effective sandbox. And then the back end of the AI knowledge is being sent to the Relax API. That gives you full sovereignty and zero data retention. If we start to step through some of these quite fun environments, what you'll first see is actually an overall viewpoint and observability over the stack and the AI that's in place. And you'll see that there's some technology in here that is Cisco specific, like telemetry and Spunk, but actually you've got a gateway, a watcher, and an API all being monitored live with an AI agent, which is the kind of modern equivalent of a firewall, monitoring for rules. If you have a look, this is just very simply saying, is the OpenClaw agent that's running in that environment healthy and running and operational? If you start to break into it here, actually, what you start to see is that you've got policies, such as the firewall being denied by default. Things like applications having to be approved before they can be ran on the first iteration. And these start to be kind of light touch security mechanisms. But what you'll really see is actually that these policies can be pre-configured and customizable to your business's requirements, as this line shows here. And what we'll actually do is we'll take a harmless skill. And this is a skill, for those who aren't aware, is just a set of protocol or processes that an AI follows. And then it uses that protocol or process to be able to execute a task. And what you'll see here is we attempted to attack our OpenClaw agent with a skill that was harmless. It didn't do anything. And actually, one of the things here is that firewall that wraps the agent said, that skill is fine. It's not doing anything harmful. You're very free to run that in an autonomous environment. And that involves an AI agent approving that, but it can also be a human in the loop to do so. And you can kind of see this part here. But then if we do that again, and we do an evil skill, and what this skill is actually trying to do is upload all of the contents of my server onto GitHub. It's doing a realistic exfiltration attack that you will see here. It's attempted to steal my SSH key out of my environment, and it's really tried to break into my instance. And what you will see Defense Claw doing here is saying, not only did I catch it doing an exfiltration attack, I caught it trying to steal your credentials, and also trying to apply a security vulnerability on your environment. And you can see that attack code just being displayed here for it to do so. This is it attempting to attack my instance via a backdoor, effectively open up an environment variable to be able to allow it to do so. And you can see very correctly that it blocked it. You can also see it here trying to attempt to install a plugin without human approval and correctly being rejected. And then from here, you will see that not only have you got the guardrails and the health of the application being added to an observability, but all of the providers, all of the technology, every integration running on it is entirely visible. And most importantly, being able to talk to the model and then see that in an audit trail and being able to be deployed in an enterprise way, where actually this all gets sent to a centralized database for enterprise to review, is also built into the solution. And what you'll see here is actually the gateway log of all of the attacks being caught and a full end-to-end auditability of the entire agent's lifecycle for what I've just showed you here. So there's lots of security tools that are in place. And what I really want people to take away from this conversation is all of the concerns and threats that Sophia has mentioned that are concerning IT leaders and making sure that people like CSIOs can get a good night's sleep at night. There are open source solutions that are being ran, also built by enterprises that can use to solve them. They're out there in the public. They're being built by open source developers like people on this call. And in a very particular way, I think there is solutions that we can use to scale these and learn about in this space as well. And here's the full audit log of all the attacks that we just made on that environment. If you'd like to pull any of this code, it's all on GitHub and you're very free to do so today. If you want to reach out to have a conversation around it, me and Sophia are more than happy to have a chat. But most importantly, please go away knowing that if you're going to run AI agents at scale, please use some of the security procedures that we've showed you today.
Thank you, Josh. So I just have a quick slide here that if you have any questions, as Josh mentioned, please feel free to reach out. There's a QR code there that'll link you to the SIVA website and Relax AI. Would love to chat with you. But thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Sophia. Great to see you both. All righty.